Welcome back to the 5-Star Council podcast. In March 2022, I attended the fabulous ABA Techshow in Chicago, and I had a chance to hear from some amazing speakers and even chatted with a few for our show. I asked our guests on this week's episode the same 4 questions. Describe the topic you're talking about at the conference. Give me one takeaway from your session. Tell me one thing you've learned here at ABA Techshow. And lastly, what's one of the biggest distractions facing lawyers today? I spoke with some familiar names and a few new guests. Gyi Tsakalakis, Jeannine Lambert, Ivy Gray, Jon Tobin, Jacqueline Schafer, Josh Weaver, Anne-Marie Rabago, Maddy Martin, and Bob Ambrogi. The answers I got were pretty fantastic, and I wanted to share them with you here. I'm John Strohmeyer, and this is the 5-Star Council podcast. The market for legal services is shifting, and lawyers who don't adapt will be left behind. This podcast gives you a competitive edge in today's market by sharing the client service lessons you probably didn't learn in law school or in law practice. Let's start the show. Hey 5-Star listeners, before we start, I want to tell you about our amazing sponsor, Smith AI. Smith AI is a virtual receptionist service for small businesses with a specialty in working with solo and small law firms. I signed up with them within weeks of starting my firm because they are affordable for even the smallest solo practice. Their friendly receptionists respond to potential clients in Spanish or English, screen and schedule new leads, and can even take payments. And now they're answering calls 24 hours a day. So even when you're asleep, they're still working. Even beyond the phone, they've got live agents and chat bots ready to capture leads on your website, by text, and by Facebook Messenger. Smith's friendly gatekeepers can staff your front line so you can work uninterrupted. You can finally have the peace of mind that while you're working, you're not missing out on future work. Plans start at just $70 a month for calls and $100 a month for chats. Smith AI is offering a free trial, and our podcast listeners get an extra $100 discount code with promo code 5STAR. That's FIVESTAR. Sign up and learn more at www.smith.ai. Don't let another day go by. Try Smith AI. Bob Ambrogi. Bob, you gave the opening contest last night. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, we hosted the 6th annual Startup Alley pitch competition. These are companies that have competed through a series of different rounds to get here. 15 companies were presenting their pitches for their new startups in legal tech. We heard from all 15 companies, and we had 3 winners, TurnSignal, Dashboard Legal, and ClearBrief.
Excellent. Is there one takeaway from that the competition last night you want to make sure listeners get?
I think the takeaway is to continue to innovate. A number of the companies that have gone on to do this in past years have seen huge success and grown into major companies in the legal tech space. So I think there's just so much innovation in law right now, and the 15 companies just demonstrate that that's the case.
Jacqueline Schafer.
I spoke on 2 panels today that were about the future of AI and how it's going to impact attorney roles. And the second presentation was on how it's going to impact legal writing instruction. And as part of that, I was demonstrating my company, ClearBrief, and how we analyze Word documents and using natural language processing, identify everything that's a citation in Word, and we can make suggestions to other facts in the record that could support your sentences. I hope the takeaway is that AI is not something to be feared. It simply cannot do the things that people hire lawyers to do around telling your story, around understanding what are the most impactful arguments to make to the court, and especially in terms of interacting with clients and the court. And we should use AI for the things that are the least interesting and, in fact, the most stressful parts of our job. We need AI to give us more bandwidth to do the fun things.
Joshua Weaver, Anne-Marie Rabago.
Our session today was Ethically Managing Modern Emergencies. Are you ready? And in light of the pandemic and all of the things that have come to bear in recent times, there's increasing need for lawyers to proactively plan for disaster recovery and incident response in the case of data and cyber threats. And so we did a session for ethics credit that basically talked about some of the ABA ethics opinions that have come out on this subject, all of the various ethical obligations and rules that come into play when lawyers and law offices find themselves compromised or in the midst of a crisis. And then we went through a tabletop exercise that actually Joshua created. That was fun for the folks in attendance to handle kind of piece by piece a emergency scenario and what they would do as we revealed new and different facts to them over the course of a few days that were actually kind of based on, I would say, and you appreciate this, John, our life in Texas last February when we were under the deep freeze and lost all power for water for days, for days on end. And that had real life consequences for attorneys across the state of Texas. But then we also sort of threw in some cyber curves as well.
Yeah, as Anne-Marie mentioned, we were talking about how to ethically manage your firm and business during a modern crisis. And look, it's been like a crazy couple of years. Everyone has gone through a global pandemic, among many other crises. We've seen natural disasters. We've seen a sharp uptick in cyber warfare, particularly cyber attacks on smaller and medium-sized businesses. That's actually become sort of a service model for cyber criminals. So our talk was focused on, what are the ethical rules that are implicated in these situations? How can you responsibly prepare using an incident response plan, a disaster recovery plan? The importance of coming up with those plans proactively before the bad thing happens is a really big key for attorneys. And then we went through this tabletop exercise that was meant to tease out, using real-life examples, loosely inspired by real-life examples, things that can go bad and how you respond to those things, and trying to simulate some of the panic and fear that people experience as they are confronted by these nasty things that can disrupt your service.
Excellent. I think you hit on it in there, but what's the one takeaway from y'all's session?
Plan proactively. Don't wait for the crisis to occur. Have what your plans are and how you're going to execute in the case of a crisis. And you said it at the end.
No plan survives first contact with the enemy. Yeah, That's right.
Better to have that plan in place before.
I think my takeaway for attorneys is that we all tend to be perfectionists, and we all tend to overthink when we are talking about risk. And so I would encourage attorneys to sort of set their attorney hat to the side and just do it, right? Just actually sit down and come up with these plans. It's better to have tried and not have a perfect plan than to not do anything at all.
Maddy Martin.
I'm talking with Regina Edwards about perfecting your intake process. Intake is a dynamic, not a static process, and it's something to look at continuously and improve on an ongoing basis, and to not get too tethered to what intake means to your firm, thinking about it holistically in your law firm as a system, and then also how you can ensure diversity and access and not pigeonhole what you assume a client to know or not know about your practice area, about their legal matter, and just have it really be a discovery process that serves your firm and your clients equally.
Ivy Gray, what's one takeaway people should come away with from your talk?
Start with the small wins. You can automate. It doesn't have to be a big and intimidating project. Even just labeling your emails in Outlook would be an automation and a win.
Jon Tobin?
There's no tension between automation and people. It's something that works together, so don't worry about automating somebody out of a job by adding automation to your firm or practice.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to give people more, they can do more other better things that they haven't been getting to already. Gyi Tsakalakis. Jeannine Lambert. So, we're now in day 2 of Tech Show 2022. There are a lot of things going around. You've had a chance to go to a few presentations. What's something you've learned from somewhere else in Tech Show this year?
Something that came up really interesting today was that the business of law and law practice are two different things. There's the business of law and how to run your business, and then law itself is your product. You have to think of it that way. Unfortunately, we go to law school to learn about running our product, and then we all start businesses without any business school training. So I think we'll bring some more of that into the tech show next year, hopefully.
Gyi?
I would say mostly the conversations I've been having are about how we've been navigating the last 2 years and how technology has supported that. And there's a lot of really unfortunate things that have happened and have been happening, continue to happen, but sometimes that desperation breeds innovation. And to see lawyers that have navigated this successfully and sharing that knowledge with some of these other lawyers, for me, it's been a really great breath of fresh air and one of the reasons you come to Tech Show anyway. So good to be back.
Jacqueline Schafer?
So I keep having versions of the same conversation that are unprompted, where I'm hearing a lot of discussions about how to attract and retain Gen Z candidates and new lawyers. And what I'm hearing is that Gen Z has much less tolerance for doing things the old way. Gen Z is not into the concept of paying their dues, that they don't want to spend their hours doing something that is not really impactful to the case. And also they want to understand how their work is contributing to a bigger picture and the things that they care about, like helping clients. And the other really overwhelming piece that I hear, especially from the law students who are at the conference, is that they want to work at firms where they feel like the firms are innovating and they have the opportunity to use tech and the opportunity to try to do things differently.
Maddy Martin?
There is more hunger than ever, coming back to this show after 2 years. There is a strong hunger, less definitions, less like inquiring about what something is, and more about how I can use it and how immediately valuable it's going to be. So I think people understand at a higher baseline than we've ever seen what legal technology can do for them. And now they're wondering, well, what is the optimal solution? How can I get more out of what I have? What should I layer on? And how can I develop a strong system that will set me up for success, instead of where can I plug holes and is this worth an investment? It's how can I improve the value of my investment?
Ivy Gray?
I got to talk with someone who was shopping around the tech show for new tools, and he had a great list of the things that he wanted, but he wasn't using the right words so that vendors could give him the answers that he needed. So you've got to know enough about your process to reformulate your questions so that you can get the answers you need and actually learn how to compare. It takes a little bit of research, but it's definitely worth it.
Jon Tobin?
So something I learned was actually before the tech show when we're preparing for this session, I was talking to Ivy and she mentioned something called tabs copy, which you can basically take the URL and the title of all your tabs in a window, copy it, put it in a spreadsheet and get rid of that window. But it's kind of cool, like if you write or create content like I do or any kind of legal briefs, you can have, all the sort of references that you're using in one document. That's how I want to use it. So it's kind of a cool automation little hack that I picked up this week.
Joshua Weaver? Anne-Marie Rabago?
What I feel like I'm seeing is that more firms are embracing hybrid work environments, work from home, work from anywhere situations, and while we appreciate the flexibility that is bringing to our lives and to our work, it also creates this on all the time scenario, and so I think that's compromising well-being. And from a distraction standpoint, it is that we're constantly distracted and constantly on, and it's having. I think we're going to see the pendulum swing a bit as we get back to trying to I hate the word balance, but have a little bit more of separation between work and life.
Bob Ambrogi?
What do you see as a distraction for lawyers that are trying to build their practice and still move forward and be tech-enabled?
Well, I think exactly what you just said. The problem is that it's a good thing that there is such a embarrassment of riches, frankly, in terms of the numbers of legal tech products out there in the market right now. But it also makes it really hard for lawyers to find what's the right product for them or what's the best product for what they need. So that's a challenge. I mean, I've actually just launched this thing called the Law Next Legal Tech Directory, which is a way of trying to help lawyers find products that are suited to what it is they're trying to do in their practices. But it's very distracting to know what tech works for you and what's the right product and what's the best product. So I think that's a key one.
Jacqueline Schafer.
Lawyers should be avoiding obsessing over spending money on things that will help them earn a ton more money. So I kind of see a lot of attorneys who focus too much on expenses when they should be thinking more about profits. And if you can buy tech or buy something that will help you increase the growth of your firm, it's absolutely worth it, and you should do it, and you should not agonize over it.
Gyi Tsakalakis.
There's so much tech out there. There's an explosion of legal tech specifically, and I think, as Jeannine mentioned, a lot of us are going to also be suggesting some tech that's outside of legal, and it can be overwhelming, right? And so you get distracted, and if you spend all your time trying to vet technology, like you lose the forest for the trees. So I would say the tech itself can be distracting. Think about how it has, real meaningful application at your practice, because some of it really can change the entire way that you practice and deliver legal services, and it's a positive thing. But don't get overwhelmed. Filter through the stuff that has the most meaning for you.
Jeannine, other than using Twitter to cheat on Wordle.
That's how you do it. But I'm not on Twitter enough to know.
But what's one thing lawyers need to be on the lookout for? What are you teaching your students? Don't get led astray by this right now.
It's easy to pick up something that will address one issue you're having. But what people have gotten really clever about right now is almost bundling. They have created whole programs that will take care of lots of things. And so that's a really better, more efficient way. If you're going to have to learn how to use technology, learn one thing that does a bunch of things and takes care of issues for you, as opposed to, this app for this, and then your phone gets overwhelmed, you get overwhelmed, all of that. But it's gotten really interesting that way, how people are kind of creating platforms more now.
Maddy Martin.
I think there's a ton of noise that still comes through the phone, through the various channels where leads are coming through, email, contact forms, Facebook messages, TikTok messages, right? And as a result, it's really hard to really separate the signal from the noise and to separate the quality from the low quality, the relevant from the irrelevant. And if you're doing that yourself, you're stripping your total energy for the day with tasks that can be offloaded. So when you're at a show like this, I think it becomes really prevalent and present in your mind of what you're missing out on, what the opportunity cost is of you being here versus doing something else with your time. And we see those missed calls. We see those calls coming in, and maybe they left a voicemail or not. Well, how can you know what quality is if you're not in control of it yourself? Well, you have to delegate it and have someone tell you, these are the calls that came in, this is the action item for you to take. The biggest distraction is A, that noise, and then B, trying to chase it yourself.
Joshua Weaver.
I think that there's a lot of good evidence that mental health is at an all-time crisis among attorneys and among really all professionals. I mean, we've endured a lot in the last couple of years. And so the number of calls for help with substance abuse, with just overall mental well-being have shot up. And look, if you're not taking good care of yourself, you can't take good care of your clients. Mm-hmm. So, this is maybe the sort of distraction that people actually should slow down for and take the time to properly address.
You don't need to do everything all at once. And I think that people get distracted thinking that it's got to be go big or go home. You can start small, and the tools that are small are still worth your time.
I think one thing is to be aware of terminology. So even things like artificial intelligence, interesting, but make sure you understand what it does and why it's going to help you, and don't just rely on a vendor telling you, hey, it has AI, so it's good for you. Look into it and try to figure out what they mean.
I mean, I just set up my new Hydro Turbo encabulator. It is great. I have no idea what it does, but they are paying, or I'm paying for every penny of it. John and Ivy, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thanks so much for listening. You can find more info on us and get your free white paper on client service at 5starcounsel.com. You can get in touch with me at john@5starcounsel.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe wherever fine podcasts are found and leave us a review wherever you can.